My fiancé publicly humiliated my family while I covered all expenses, so I cancelled the wedding in front of everyone and walked away silently. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for the past 2 years, I genuinely believe my fiancée, Vanessa, was the woman I was meant to build a life with. She walked into every room like she owned the air, calm, elegant, poised, and I convinced myself I'd lucked out far beyond what I deserved. I remember those early months vividly, the way she'd squeeze my hand and whisper, "You work so hard for us. I'm so proud of you." Those words lit me up, made me feel like I was doing something meaningful, like I was building a future with someone who actually saw me. I paid for almost everything, rent, trips, dinners, gifts, because she said her family wasn't in a good financial place, and I didn't want her to feel embarrassed. Whenever I hesitated, she'd say softly, "Babe, I hate that you have to carry the weight, but I'll make it up to you one day, I promise." And I believed her. It felt good to provide. It felt good to be needed. Even now, remembering that naive version of myself stings. But little cracks began showing earlier than I admitted. I'd bring my parents up, how my mom saved coupons like it was an Olympic sport, how my dad fixed appliances for neighbors just to stay busy, and Vanessa would laugh lightly and say, "They're sweet, just not very refined." The first time, I thought I misheard. The 5th time, I knew I didn't. She joked about their clothes, their manners, their small-town simplicity, and every time I'd freeze for a second before forcing a smile, pretending it didn't bother me. I told myself she was stressed. Wedding planning was overwhelming. Maybe she didn't mean it the way it sounded. Maybe I was being sensitive. But deep down, something gritty and cold settled in my chest, something I ignored because I wanted this relationship to be everything I dreamed it was. I didn't know it yet, but those tiny cracks were the first signs of a storm I was completely unprepared for, and it was already forming right over my head. I thought wedding planning would be this exciting, emotional, we're building a life together, kind of experience. Instead, it felt like I'd accidentally wandered into someone else's dream, Vanessa's dream, where my role was just to sign checks and nod at the right moments. From the very first meeting with the planner, she flipped through glossy catalogs, tapping her finger on the most expensive options without hesitation. "We can't have a basic setup, babe," she'd say with a soft smile. "People are going to remember this forever." People. Not us. Not our families. Just, people. I covered every cost, venue deposits, catering upgrades, designer floral arrangements, because every time I raised a concern, she'd tilt her head and sigh, "I just want one thing in my life to feel special." And I swallowed my own discomfort like poison, telling myself I could afford it and it was worth it if it made her happy. But things shifted when she started excluding my parents from decisions. Whenever my mom suggested something simple, like handmade centerpieces or a modest dessert table, Vanessa would say, "That's cute, but this wedding needs a more elevated vibe." Elevated became her favorite word, like everything meaningful to me was somehow beneath her. My parents stayed quiet, trying not to step on toes, but I saw the way my mom's smile tightened, the way my dad's shoulders slumped when Vanessa dismissed their ideas. One evening, my mom gently asked, "Are you sure she wants us involved?" And the guilt I felt in that moment nearly crushed me. Still, I defended Vanessa. "She's stressed," I told myself. "She's overwhelmed. It's temporary." But the truth was harder to face, she didn't see my family as good enough. And I was starting to feel like maybe, just maybe, she didn't see me as good enough either. I kept pushing those thoughts down, clinging to the hope that things would smooth out, not realizing the real trouble was only beginning to surface. The rehearsal dinner should have been a warm, emotional night, families blending, laughter filling the room, nerves settling before the big day. Instead, the moment Vanessa walked in, something felt off. She arrived almost 40 minutes late, heels clicking sharply across the floor, and the first thing she did was glance at my dad's outfit and mutter, "Oh, he really wore that?" It wasn't loud, but it was loud enough. My dad's smile faltered. My mom pretended not to hear. And I felt my stomach twist. Throughout the dinner, Vanessa dominated every conversation. She interrupted my sister twice mid-sentence, corrected my mom about details no one cared about, and kept telling the server to bring something more sophisticated than the house wine I chose. Every small moment felt like a subtle dig, a reminder that in her world, my family didn't measure up. At one point, my best friend pulled me aside, his voice low and uneasy. "Man, this isn't normal. She's talking down to them." I wanted to defend her, I really did, but the words wouldn't come out. Instead, I forced a weak smile and said, "She's just stressed," but even he could hear the doubt in my tone. The final straw came when my mom tried to make a light-hearted joke about how she used to dream of my wedding when I was a kid. Vanessa chuckled and said, "Well, I'm sure you didn't imagine it being this fancy. But don't worry, we'll elevate things for the ceremony." My mom's face dropped, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of embarrassment and pain. That night, when everyone left, Vanessa kissed me on the cheek and said, "Your family will adjust. They just need to get used to bigger things." Bigger things. As if everything I came from was small, inconvenient, or beneath her. I went home with a heavy chest, lying awake in bed replaying every moment, every comment, every look. And for the first time, I wondered if this wedding was about love, or about image. The part that scared me most? I already knew the answer. The morning after the rehearsal dinner, I woke up hoping I'd exaggerated everything in my head. Maybe I was tired. Maybe Vanessa's comments weren't as sharp as I remembered. But then my phone started blowing up, screenshots, messages, notifications. Friends were sending me clips from Vanessa's Instagram story, and my heart dropped when I opened it. She had filmed a short video with her bridesmaids, laughing about my parents' outfits from the night before. "They're adorable," she said in a fake sweet tone. "Like they're playing dress-up for a fancy event." Her bridesmaids cackled. I felt sick. I confronted her immediately. "Vanessa, what the hell is this?" She didn't even look guilty. She just shrugged, brushing her hair over her shoulder as she said, "Babe, you're overreacting." It was a joke. Her voice was light, airy, practiced. "People need to relax. Your family knows I don't mean anything by it." "They were humiliated," I said. My voice was shaking, not with anger, but with something deeper. Disappointment. Dread. A painful realization gnawing its way inside me. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Honestly, if they're that sensitive, maybe they shouldn't be around high-end events." That sentence hit me like a slap. High-end events. As if she was operating at a level my family didn't deserve to stand near. I felt myself bracing, as if the floor was shifting beneath me. "They're my family," I said quietly. "They're good people." She gave a short laugh. "I never said they weren't good. They're just, simple." Simple. That one word echoed in my skull. My sister later messaged me, furious. "I tried talking to her," she wrote. "She brushed me off. Said we shouldn't take things so seriously. Every instinct told me something was deeply wrong. This wasn't stress. This wasn't nerves. This was who she was. And as much as I tried to deny it, I could feel it. The situation was slipping out of my control faster than I realized, and the storm was only getting darker. The days leading up to the wedding felt nothing like celebration, they felt like walking barefoot over broken glass. My parents considered backing out entirely, and when my mom told me, her voice cracked like she was confessing something shameful. "We don't want to ruin your big day," she whispered, eyes glistening. The idea that they felt like a burden punched a hole straight through my chest. I begged them to stay, reassuring them everything would be fine, even though I didn't believe it myself. Meanwhile, Vanessa had become colder, sharper, like every interaction was a chore she barely tolerated. She sent me rapid-fire texts about last-minute changes, upgrade the bar package. Switch to the premium floral arch. Pay the seamstress extra to rush the adjustments. No, please, no appreciation, just demands. When I pushed back even slightly, she'd fire back with, "Do you want this wedding to look cheap?" One afternoon, I overheard her talking to her bridesmaids while I walked past her dressing room. Her voice drifted out, coated with arrogance, "I can't wait to finally be part of a better family." No offense, but his side, they're rough around the edges. They laughed. My heart didn't break this time, it cracked. Deep, jagged, undeniable. I confronted her later, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why would you say that? Why would you talk about my family like that?" She blinked at me like I was being dramatic. "Babe, it was just girl talk. Stop being so sensitive. You know your family is different." Different. Another word that felt like a dagger. I left the room because if I stayed, I would have said something I couldn't take back. That night, lying alone on the couch because I needed space, I stared at the ceiling and realized something terrifying. The woman I was about to marry didn't just look down on my family, she looked down on me too. And the worst part? The wedding was just hours away. The night before the wedding, when everything should have felt magical, my mom called and asked if she could stop by. Her voice sounded small, too small, and something inside me tightened. When my parents arrived, they stood in my doorway looking strangely nervous, like they were about to deliver bad news. My mom clutched a small shopping bag, and my dad kept rubbing the back of his neck the way he does when he's anxious. "We just wanted to talk before tomorrow," my dad said quietly. I invited them in, already feeling my pulse pick up. My mom handed me the bag. Inside were 2 brand new outfits, an elegant dress for her, a sleek suit for him. "We, got these for the wedding," she whispered. I smiled gently. "They look great, Mom, but you didn't need to buy anything new." That's when it happened. My mom's eyes filled with tears as she said, "We didn't want Vanessa to laugh at us again." My breath stopped. Completely. She continued, voice trembling, "Your father and I, we took a small loan. Just something manageable. We didn't want to embarrass you. A loan." My parents, who already lived paycheck to paycheck, took out a loan just to avoid being mocked by the woman I was about to marry. I felt something inside me collapse. "Mom. Dad, you never embarrassed me. Not once." My voice cracked so hard it surprised me. My dad placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "Son, we know we're not fancy. But we wanted tomorrow to be perfect for you. Perfect. Perfect for a woman who couldn't even hide her contempt for them." My mom suddenly gripped my hand. "Please don't call off the wedding," she said, panic flickering in her eyes. "People are counting on tomorrow. We don't want to ruin your happiness." Happiness. I didn't even know what that meant anymore. After they left, I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the outfits they bought, staring at the proof of how far they were willing to go for me, and how far Vanessa had pushed them. I didn't sleep that night. And deep down, I knew the next day was going to break something open forever. The morning of the wedding felt like wading through thick, invisible fog. Every breath felt heavy, every thought sharper than it should have been. My parents arrived early at the venue, dressed in those brand new outfits they'd gone into debt to buy. My mom looked beautiful, nervous, but beautiful, and my dad kept smoothing down his jacket like he wasn't sure he deserved to wear something that nice. I wanted to hug them both, tell them none of this was their fault, but the words stuck in my throat. When Vanessa arrived, she looked stunning, there was no denying that, but beauty did nothing to soften the venom in her eyes. She took one glance at my parents and immediately leaned toward her maid of honor, whispering something behind her hand. They both snickered. I caught only a fragment, "Still looks cheap." My heart clenched so tight I swear something inside me popped. During the family photo session, Vanessa's mask slipped even further. She stepped next to my mom, paused, and said under her breath, "Make sure the photographer edits this, we don't need any budget vibes ruining the album." I saw my mom flinch like she'd been slapped. My dad's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He always said nothing, he didn't like conflict. But this wasn't conflict. This was cruelty dressed up in designer lace. I pulled Vanessa aside and whispered, "Can you stop? Please. They're trying." She blinked at me, confused. Trying what? To fit in. Then she laughed softly. Softly, but with a blade hidden inside the sound. Guests started to notice. I caught the looks, awkward, uncomfortable, sympathetic. Whispers drifted through the room like smoke. It was getting harder to pretend, harder to smile, harder to convince myself this was normal. As the ceremony time approached, Vanessa fussed about decor and lighting, acting like everything was beneath her standards. Meanwhile, I stood there with a tightening chest, watching the people I loved most shrink under her judgment. And for the first time, a terrifying thought rooted itself in my mind: if she could treat them like this before the vows, what would she do after? I thought the worst was over. I thought Vanessa's snide comments and whispered insults were the peak of her cruelty. But I was wrong. So painfully wrong. The reception had just begun, lights dimmed warm and soft, music playing low, guests settling into their seats. My parents sat together at a corner table, smiling tightly, trying to blend into the room as if shrinking might protect them. Then Vanessa grabbed the microphone. She tapped it dramatically, drawing everyone's attention. "Okay everyone," she giggled, already half drunk on champagne and ego, "time for a funny little story about the in-laws." My blood ran cold. I stood from my seat instinctively, but it was too late. She pointed toward my parents' table. "So, last night, they showed up in these outfits." Laughter bubbled from her bridesmaids. Vanessa continued, "I mean, they tried. Really. But I guess not everyone's used to high-end events." She said it loud. Clear. Cruel. The room fell silent. Completely. Uncomfortably. Painfully. My mom froze, eyes widening like she'd just been stabbed in public. My dad stared at the floor, face reddening, jaw trembling. He stood abruptly and walked out of the room, one hand over his mouth as if trying to hold himself together. My mom whispered, "I'll go check on him," voice cracking, and hurried after him. Vanessa kept laughing. Laughing. "Come on, it's a joke," she said, shrugging as murmurs rippled around the room like shockwaves. Guests exchanged horrified glances. The DJ looked at me helplessly, unsure whether to cut her mic. Even Vanessa's own parents were covering their faces. I walked toward her slowly, each step heavy, like I was moving through water. "Stop," I said quietly. Just one word. But even I could hear the tremor in it. She blinked, confused, as if she couldn't fathom why I wasn't amused. "Babe, relax," she whispered into the mic, "they know I'm just being honest." Honest. She called humiliation honesty. And there, in that moment, watching my mother cry in the hallway, I felt something inside me break completely. Something that couldn't be fixed. Something that shouldn't be fixed. This wasn't the woman I loved. This was someone else entirely. I didn't go after Vanessa. Not right away. Instead, I walked toward the entrance where my parents had disappeared, every step feeling heavier, slower, like gravity itself was trying to stop me from seeing the fallout. I found them in the hallway, my mom wiping her face with trembling hands, my dad staring at the carpet like if he looked up, everything would shatter. "Dad." "Mom," I whispered, but my voice cracked before I could say more. My dad shook his head. "Son, go back inside. Don't make a scene for us." That broke me. The man who spent his whole life enduring hardship without complaint was now begging me not to cause trouble, because he thought he wasn't worth defending. My mom touched my arm gently and whispered, "Please don't ruin your day. We can handle this." Her voice was soft but defeated, like she'd already accepted humiliation as her role in this wedding. I'm so sorry, I said, my throat burning. I should have stopped her. My mom forced a tiny smile through her tears. You didn't do this. Just enjoy your night, sweetheart. But how could I enjoy anything when the two people who gave me everything were hurt like this? When I stepped back inside the reception hall, it felt like walking into a crime scene. The air was thick. Conversations were hushed. Eyes flicked toward me and away just as fast. My best man approached, gripping my shoulder. Are you okay? He asked quietly. I didn't answer. Because okay wasn't even on the map anymore. I walked back into the reception hall with a strange, icy calm settling over me. It wasn't rage anymore, it was clarity. Pure, undeniable clarity. The kind that hits you when you realize every excuse you made, every doubt you swallowed, every warning you ignored, has finally led you to a moment you can't walk away from. Vanessa was still laughing with her bridesmaids, glass in hand, looking like a queen basking in attention she didn't deserve. She didn't notice me at first. Nobody did. I stepped onto the small stage where the DJ was, and I asked softly, "Can I borrow the mic?" He looked at me with wide eyes, hesitated, then handed it over like he knew exactly what was coming. The room quieted instantly. Conversations faded. Chairs stopped shifting. Even the music seemed to retreat. Everyone, I said, my voice steady in a way that didn't feel like my own, may I have your attention for a moment? Vanessa froze. She smiled, slow, confident, oblivious, and mouthed, "Ah, babe," she genuinely thought I was about to praise her. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, "This wedding is cancelled." Gasps erupted. Someone dropped a fork. Vanessa blinked rapidly, confusion flickering into panic. What? Babe, what are you talking about? I continued, my tone calm but sharp enough to cut the air. I will not marry someone who humiliates my parents. Who mocks the people who raised me. Who treats kindness like weakness. Who treats love like a performance. Her face drained of color. Stop, please, you're embarrassing me, she whispered, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. I'm not embarrassing you, I said. I'm telling the truth. In front of the same people who just watched you tear my family apart. A wave of murmurs rippled through the room, agreement, shock, relief. Vanessa's parents looked mortified. Mine stood near the doorway, stunned, my mom's hand covering her mouth. I slid the ring off my finger and placed it gently on the nearby table. I'm done, I said softly. I deserve better. My family deserves better. Then I set the mic down. And the silence that followed was louder than any applause, any shout, any explosion could have been. It was the silence of an ending, and the beginning of something I couldn't yet name. The moment I set the mic down, the entire room seemed to pulse with a new kind of electricity, heavy, tense, waiting to snap. Vanessa stumbled toward me, mascara already smudging, panic twisting her voice. Please don't do this, she cried, gripping my wrist. It was just jokes. You're blowing everything out of proportion. Her fingers dug into my skin, desperate, frantic, shaking. I gently pulled my hand away. Let go, Vanessa. She froze like she didn't recognize the tone I was using, calm, final, unmovable. Guests began murmuring louder, some whispering to each other with wide-eyed shock, others shaking their heads like they'd seen this coming all along. A few approached Vanessa, telling her softly, "You went too far," and for the first time all night, she didn't fight back. She looked around as if waiting for someone to defend her, but no one did. Not even her own parents. Her mother simply lowered her eyes. Her father stood stiff, ashamed. I turned toward the doorway where my parents stood. My mom was trembling, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. My dad looked stunned, but there was something else beneath it, a flicker of pride, maybe. Or relief. I walked toward them slowly, my shoes echoing on the floor like each step was sealing a chapter of my life. Vanessa's voice broke behind me. "Please," she whispered, barely audible. "Don't leave me like this." I didn't turn around. My parents stepped aside so I could pass, but my dad's hand brushed my shoulder, a subtle, grounding gesture. Outside, the night air hit me like a needed slap across the face, cold, clean, real. My mom hugged me tightly, whispering into my chest, "You didn't embarrass us, you defended us. That means everything." I swallowed hard, letting the weight of the moment settle. My entire future had just shifted in a matter of minutes, and yet, for the first time in a long time, my chest felt open instead of crushed. Behind us, the venue doors burst open as Vanessa let out a heartbroken sob. But I kept walking. I didn't need to say another word. My silence was enough. More than enough. And deep down, I knew the fallout from this was only just beginning. The days after the cancelled wedding felt strangely quiet, like my life had been a storm for so long that the sudden stillness didn't feel real. My phone buzzed non-stop, calls, messages, voicemails, from Vanessa. Some were tearful, some angry, some apologetic to the point of sounding rehearsed. I was stressed. I didn't mean it. "You ruined both our lives. Please, I can change." I didn't answer any of them. Not out of spite, out of clarity. A kind of clarity I'd never felt before. The kind that comes when you finally stop lying to yourself. Instead, I spent the next few days with my parents. We sat on their back porch drinking tea, saying very little, but somehow it felt like everything was being said anyway. My mom kept apologizing for being the reason all this happened, and every time I told her, "You were the reason I finally woke up." My dad, who rarely speaks about feelings, said quietly, "You saved yourself from a lifetime of being disrespected. I'm proud of you, son." Their words healed pieces of me I didn't know were broken. Friends and relatives reached out too, some shocked, some relieved, some admitting they'd seen red flags but didn't know how to tell me. I tried not to dwell on what could have happened if I'd gone through with it. Instead, I focused on the unexpected sense of peace settling into my bones. No more walking on eggshells. No more pretending. No more excuses. Vanessa's final message came 3 days later, "I hope you're happy embarrassing me. You destroyed everything." I read it once, took a breath, and deleted it. Because the truth was simple, I didn't destroy anything. I just refused to let cruelty disguise itself as love anymore. As the week ended, I drove alone to a quiet overlook outside the city, the same spot I used to go to when life felt too heavy. The wind was cool, the view wide open, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe fully. Walking away wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cinematic. It was silent. Steady. Final. And that silence became the loudest kind of freedom I've ever known.